Welcome back to the electrifying sequel of our journey through the history of WrestleMania. Today we'll be covering WrestleManias 11 through 20. In this thrilling installment, we continue to unravel the epic saga of WrestleMania, diving headfirst into an era of heart-pounding action, unforgettable moments, larger-than-life personalities, and of course, a whole lot of attitude that defined the second decade of the greatest stage of them all. If you haven't yet, be sure to check out part 1 where we took a look back at the early years of WrestleMania. Now without further ado, let's get into it. WrestleMania 11. After the highs of WrestleMania 10, it's hard to believe just how much of a step back WrestleMania 11 would be. From the matches to the storyline, and even the technical production of the event, it seemed as if WrestleMania 11 has more in common with WrestleMania 2 than it does with 10. Strangely, and perhaps because he lacked a name as big as Hulk Hogan's, Vince decided to go back to his roots and pull out the celebrity card for WrestleMania 11, with names like Pamela Anderson, Jenny McCarthy prominently featured in hopes of garnering mainstream attention. Heck, even the main event was a showcase of NFL players rather than wrestlers, as Bam Bam Bigelow squared off against Hall of Fame linebacker Lawrence Taylor, who admittedly put on a pretty decent showing for the only few weeks of training he had. It definitely helped that he was one of the scariest humans on the planet at the time. As a big football fan myself, I actually really enjoy this match. Seeing LT joined in the ring by a host of fellow NFL players beating up people, similarly to the NFL Battle Royal at WrestleMania 2, what can I say? It's fun to watch. The match that got pushed down the card for the celebrity guest match was the WWF Championship. Yeah, you know, the thing that was meant to be the most important thing of the company played second fiddle on this night. The match was between Shawn Michaels, accompanied by Jenny McCarthy, and Diesel, accompanied by Pamela Anderson. Diesel will go on to win the match. It's an alright match outside of a botched jackknife, and in the end, it should have been the main event. And rewatching the whole show, it really seems like it was a solid B pay-per-view, but certainly not WrestleMania worthy. WrestleMania 12. WrestleMania 12 will forever go down in history as the night that truly turned Shawn Michaels into Mr. WrestleMania. I might as well say now that if you can't tell, I was not alive for this WrestleMania. In fact, the first WrestleMania I can actually remember watching live was WrestleMania 21 in 2005. All the ones prior I have watched back with hindsight, so take my opinions with a grain of salt. All that being said, the main event of WrestleMania 12 between Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart sends me back to 1996, as stupid as that possibly sounds, unless I wasn't alive then. This match is near impossible not to be invested in after Shawn Michaels' sweet zipline entrance, and then you're treated to an hour-long show of two masters at their craft. With Shawn Michaels prevailing in the end, the emotion is palpable. Honestly, just go watch it. If you're not a fan of long technical matches, you might not like it, but I really think it's worth the watch. Not to mention the decision to make the main event a 60-minute Iron Man match had the benefit of cutting down on the mid-card fluff, leaving this WrestleMania with the smallest card ever to date. The event also saw the return of the Ultimate Warrior, who defeated a young Triple H, then Hunter Hearst Helmsley in his WrestleMania debut, as well as The Undertaker vs. Diesel, one of the better early streak matches, but unfortunately that isn't saying much. WrestleMania 13. 1997 brought the world WrestleMania 13, an event that once again had the wrong main event, and on top of that, said should have been main event, ultimately carried the show. This was a rough era for the WWF, as WCW was at its peak in popularity, really giving Vince a run for his money. So much so that WCW's Spring Stampede pay-per-view received a better buy rate a couple of weeks after this WrestleMania. However, those who skipped out on WrestleMania 13 did miss out on one incredible match. The match that should have, in hindsight, been the main event. Bret the Hitman Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin. This submission match is a classic in both men's careers. The match is really a masterclass in in-ring storytelling, as both men walked into the match as somewhat of tweeners, facing mixed reactions, and by the end, Hart was hated, and Austin was a hero after passing out in a sharpshooter rather than submitting to Hart. The image of Austin passing out in a sharpshooter covered in blood is burned into the memories of fans, many of whom regard this match as one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time. A truly unforgettable match that was the key chapter in Austin's journey to the top of the wrestling world, though the rest of the card was rather forgettable, with the main event being a pretty average Undertaker street match against Psycho Sid for the world title. Apparently, the original plan was to have the main event be a rematch between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels for the world title, but apparently Michaels couldn't go because of a knee injury. Some even claim Michaels overplayed the injury so he wouldn't have to put Hart over. Whatever the case may be, It certainly added fuel to the growing real-life animosity between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. It's kind of funny though, we inadvertently got one of the best WrestleMania matches ever thanks to HBK's pettiness. WrestleMania 14. In what is often seen as the WrestleMania that would change the landscape of professional wrestling and launch the Attitude Era, WrestleMania 14 will once again play the celebrity card to gain more mainstream attention, except this time it worked to near perfection. By having Stone Cold and Mike Tyson clash in one of the most famous Raw segments that WWE has pulled off, it was a near masterstroke. With Iron Mike Tyson on board, not just for WrestleMania, but the build, the mainstream public became more familiar with Stone Cold Steve Austin and the WWF. In the main event, Austin defeated Shawn Michaels to become the new WWF World Heavyweight Champion in a match that featured Mike Tyson serving as the special enforcer. Although Tyson had been aligned with Michaels in his stable D-Generation X during the build, Tyson revealed to have been aligned with Austin all along, and he personally counted the pinfall and declared Austin the winner. Tyson would even drape a Stone Cold Steve Austin t-shirt over Michaels' face after the match as he was laid out on the mat, a move that enraged the Heartbreak Kid, to a point that he went to confront Tyson after the show. Luckily for Shawn, Shane McMahon prevented chaos from ensuing, as the anger was genuine and not scripted, stopping the Heartbreak Kid from almost certainly making a decision he'd regret. WrestleMania 14 really kicked things up a notch, greatly playing into a more edgy adult audience, with more violence, more provocative women, and more compelling yet outrageous storylines. One of these storylines was between The Undertaker and his younger brother Kane, who up until a few months prior, The Undertaker thought was dead, thanks to a house fire, but apparently Paul Bearer had brought the devil's favorite demon back to life to unleash hell and vengeance on The Undertaker. A completely absurd storyline, but that's sometimes what makes wrestling awesome. Overall, the card is by no means perfect, but the good outweighs the bad, with matches like Cactus Jack and Terry Funk versus the New Age Outlaws adding to the fun. Though WrestleMania 14 might not be the best WrestleMania of all time, it certainly is an essential part of the dawn of the Attitude Era, giving the feeling that wrestling was cool again. WrestleMania 15. The following year, at WrestleMania 15, the WWF really kicked things into an even higher gear in what is arguably the peak of the Austin era. Of course, the red-hot Stone Cold Steve Austin was the biggest draw, but the rest of the roster was also being put to great use, with a cultivated and diverse roster of compelling characters and emerging talents. The Undertaker's persona was made even darker. Triple H, as the leader of DX, was breaking out in the mid-card. Mankind had become a huge fan favorite, and Kane was on a complete tear. Additionally, The Big Show had just been hired, introducing a fresh new wave of main event players, something WCW was lacking in the waning days of the NWO. Oh, then of course, there was The Rock. At the time, no one had any idea just how incredibly famous and popular Dwayne Johnson would become. In fact, many fans downright hated babyface Rocky Maivia. But come 1999, heel Rock had been fully unleashed, sending a wave of electricity every time he picked up the mic. His heel work and persona were so dang cool that it inevitably turned him babyface. The only way to get the fans to give the desired reaction was to turn him corporate and feud with Steve Austin, a feud that would go down as one of the greatest of all times. With fans so invested in Steve Austin's plight against the evil Vince McMahon that come WrestleMania, fans were beyond excited to see the Rattlesnake clash with the Great One. Their no disqualification match at WrestleMania 15 that featured a total of 4 referees by the end is probably in hindsight the weakest of their 3 matches, but it's still a really good match, and both men were so incredibly over that it didn't matter, and led to WrestleMania 15 receiving the highest buy rate of any WWF pay-per-view to that point, as fans gleefully watched Austin defeat The Rock for the World Championship. With all that being said, the in-ring action, especially on the undercard, didn't fully live up to the build, but it's still a really fun show, and the star powers of the wrestlers in the match still made this WrestleMania a pretty fun night. Oh, also The Undertaker probably should have gone to jail for what he did to the Big Boss Man. WrestleMania 2000. With the turn of the millennia, the 16th rendition of the show, WrestleMania 2000 looked to further up the ante and deliver not only compelling storylines, but unforgettable in-ring action. The roster was so loaded in 2000 that they didn't even miss the injured Stone Cold Steve Austin, something that certainly would not have been the case in the previous 3 years. The card was almost entirely made up of multi-man matches, and almost all of them delivered to some degree, My personal favorite match of the night was the first ever triangle ladder match for the WWF Tag Team Championships, involving the Hardy Boys, Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy, the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray Dudley and Devon Dudley, and Edge and Christian. This match was a death-defying and exciting match, and changed the course of professional wrestling, spawning new high-risk match types like tables, ladders, and chairs. It was really something special, and perhaps the greatest ladder match of all time, which is crazy knowing that these 6 men would one-up themselves the following year in a TLC match. The ladder match may have stolen the show, but the main event was still an entertaining family affair. A fatal 4-way billed as having a McMahon in every corner, as Triple H was accompanied by Stephanie McMahon, The Rock by Vince McMahon, The Big Show by Shane McMahon, and Mick Foley by Linda McMahon. Triple H will retain his title, kicking off his utterly dominant run in the early 2000s. WrestleMania 17. The WWF had a new era entering WrestleMania 17, having bought out their number one competitor, WCW, weeks before the show. Riding this triumphant high, WrestleMania 17 put on a masterclass of a show, and to this day, it's almost always somewhere near the top of many all-time WrestleMania lists. As mentioned before, the Hardy Boys, the Dudley Boys, and Edge and Christian put on an insane showing in a TLC match that somehow topped their match from the year prior. This match holds a special place for me, as a friend of mine in elementary school showed me the ridiculous spot of Edge spearing Jeff Hardy off the top of the ladder, prompting me to go rent this show from Blockbuster, making WrestleMania 17 the first WWE pay-per-view I went back and watched, further growing my love for professional wrestling. The whole card is filled to the brim with great matches. The first clash between The Undertaker and Triple H, Kurt versus Chris in a technical wrestling showcase, Vince and Shane McMahon in an impressively brutal father and son street fight, and the main event for the ages. Like WrestleMania 6 and 12, this is what a WrestleMania event should be. The best versus the best, a truly big match atmosphere. One of the very best main events in WrestleMania history. For the second time, it would be The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin, a fitting end to the Attitude Era. The two battled and bled over the WWF Championship. In the end, Austin was victorious, but shockingly, in his home state of Texas, infamously turned heel, aligning with his bitter nemesis Vince, and capturing the belt he so cherished. For many, this was the peak of WWF, and even though the Austin heel turn didn't end up playing out as well as it could have down the line, on this night they captured lightning in a bottle, the perfect mix of action, suspense, pageantry, and drama. Everything that makes wrestling so damn fun, and this is why WrestleMania 17 is nothing short of a masterpiece. WrestleMania 18. With big shoes to fill, WrestleMania 18 had the luxury of having a fresh pool of talent, thanks to the WCW buyout. One of those former WCW names was Chris Jericho, who had made his way out of the mid-card to the main event of WrestleMania, putting on a decent match against Triple H for the Undisputed Championship. Ric Flair and The Undertaker also had a really solid match that reminded the world how great Ric Flair was in the ring, giving his career a second life in the early 2000s. However, this WrestleMania will always be remembered for the magical atmosphere brought about by a clash of two undeniable legendary figures in wrestling, The Rock and Hulk Hogan. The fans never sat down and reacted to everything, even when the two were just staring at each other. The two performers laid it all on the line. Even though Hogan was booked as a heel and was facing one of the company's biggest faces in history, the Toronto crowd couldn't help themselves but cheer for the Hulkster. The atmosphere created by the crowd was so incredible that the two men could have played chess in the middle of the ring, and it would have been electric. Even in defeat, Hogan was the star of the show as the two icons shook hands, an undeniably epic WrestleMania moment. WrestleMania 19. WrestleMania 19 once again saw an evolution of the company's history, as this was the first WrestleMania after the company was renamed to World Wrestling Entertainment, or WWE, and the Ruthless Aggression era was in full swing. We'd see Stone Cold's last match for nearly 20 years as he faced The Rock for a third time at WrestleMania, ending their long-running feud with The Rock finally besting the Rattlesnake. Additionally, Hulk Hogan finally got one over on his boss as he defeated Vince McMahon, and Mr. WrestleMania himself, Shawn Michaels, participated in his first WrestleMania match in 5 years against Chris Jericho, who wanted nothing more than to best his boyhood hero. Y2J and HBK put on a masterful performance, and what is still one of the best non-title matches in WrestleMania history, with Jericho falling just short in this emotion-filled bout. The lowlight of this show was the World Heavyweight Championship being defended for the first time at the event, in a match between Triple H and Booker T. The match quality is there somewhat, however, the problematic storyline between the two men, ending in a Triple H victory, left a bad taste in many's mouths. The main event, though, absolutely delivered on all accounts and is easily one of my favorite WrestleMania matches ever, as the next big thing, Brock Lesnar faced off against Kurt Angle. Angle even postponed his neck surgery to compete in this match. This isn't too surprising, knowing that he won an Olympic gold medal with a broken neck, but it's still insane nonetheless. I don't care one bit what Dave Meltzer says, this is an easy 5-star match. Both men put it all on the line, and watching just this match alone can tell anyone that these guys were born to wrestle. The end of this match is utterly nuts, as the near 300-pound Brock Lesnar went for a top rope shooting star press, only to land directly on his head and neck, a situation that would have surely crippled, if not killed, any normal human being. But Brock Lesnar is more beast than man, and finished the match, ending Angle with an F5, winning the WWE Championship. After the match, Angle and Lesnar, who both are somehow still standing, shook hands and embraced as the show came to a close. WrestleMania 20. WWE celebrated the 20th edition of WrestleMania by once again returning to Madison Square Garden. The night featured an all-around pretty good show, from the undercard to the main event. The Undertaker, who returned to his dead man persona, defeated his now unmasked brother Kane for the second time at WrestleMania. Both the WWE Championship and World Heavyweight Championships were won or defended by guys who had been in the industry for a long time and at times were undervalued due to their size. In what was never going to not be a fantastic match, Eddie Guerrero defeated Kurt Angle to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. Then, in what is now easily the least referenced WrestleMania main event by the WWE, Christopher the Rabid Wolverine, sorry, the algorithm crushed my Randy Orton video for using his name, so that's gonna have to do, but we all know who I'm talking about, defeated Triple H and Shawn Michaels to win the World Heavyweight Championship in a stellar triple threat match. The event also featured a fun match between the Rock and Sock Connection, Rock and Mick Foley, versus Evolution, Batista, Randy Orton, and Ric Flair, in a 2-on-3 handicap match. This was The Rock's last match for over 7 years. John Cena also captured his first championship gold by winning the US title from Big Show, foretelling his rise to superstardom. However, there was one match on this card that ended up completely falling flat, as Brock Lesnar faced off against Goldberg. In theory, this match should have been an intense, hard-hitting slobber knocker, but unfortunately, both superstars were on their way out of the WWE, and the New York crowd let them have it, showering the men with a chorus of boos and "you sold out" chants. The only thing that saved this match was special guest referee Stone Cold Steve Austin hitting both Lesnar and Goldberg with stunners after the match, satisfying the raucous New York crowd.